Hello, everyone, and welcome back.
To left, wrong, and center.
Left, wrong, and center. Center.
That's where I like to be.
Grant makes fun of me for putting T's in my words.
Center, Erie County.
Erie County. Which I don't do often, but then I started doing as I got into this. So we didn't release an episode last week because we tried to record an episode and we talked for an hour and a half, and then my mic was off and Grant's was on. There's a couple of topics that we had on our docket last week that I think we should talk about this week. And I'm just going to get right into it.
Yeah, sure.
So one of these issues is Democrats spending money to study the syntax and communication methods of young men, which I know how you feel about this.
Yeah, for sure.
I am mixed on how I feel about this, but there's a couple of things here. One, I want to get into the issue itself, but the reaction to this was nothing but mockery, deriding the Democratic Party as out of touch.
Which I agree with.
Kind of making fun of, why are we spending money? So my problem here is we are losing young men. We're losing men.
We're losing men across all demographics.
Right. But I have my theories on why that is, and I think that I think that they're more than theories. I think it's a tricky political conversation for a candidate to have.
Yeah.
I think I'm right, obviously. Everybody thinks they're right, but I think there's plenty of evidence to support that I'm right. I think it's cultural much more than it is about any issues.
Okay.
I know that you believe that this is a stupid thing to spend money on and that Democrats should just talk to men.
I think that, and I'll let you continue here, but I think the issue that I have is this is the problem that I've had across the board, especially with the Democratic Party in general, is that instead of just solving the issue, they're going to pay some fancy consultants to give them a report, and then we're going to see more videos of Mark Kelly or Kamala Harris going, chip in $5 to help the DNC fight back against Trump, but they're spending $20 million.
I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you. Those emails that everyone mocks, and they're funny. I love the texts that the roommate.
Kyle, I'm going to be honest.
Look, Kyle.
Look, Kyle.
It's Nancy Pelosi.
I'm here.
The dishes are in the dishwasher and remain unwashed. They're funny, but it's also that's just fundraising. It's just like that. The Republicans do it.
Right. But theirs are more like the radical left are coming to take over your bathrooms.
Right, but we're reaching out to very different people.
Of course. Right.
So so I agree with you. I agree that I kind of am like, why do we need to study how to talk to men? And then I'm also I'm seeing strategies come out of this where it's and I'm not in this space.
Yeah.
But having things interjected into the gaming space or the podcast space, and it's that is smart. We're too late to the party because Republicans have been doing it for a long time, but that is smart. It's not a bad approach.
No.
And I think with men specifically, and I'm talking as a gay man, so I am a man, but it's and that's not a debate, I guess, but I'm also I'm different in a certain way, and so I'm separate from this conversation in a way. But I think the problem with trying to talk to men is Grant.
Yeah.
As a straight white man who goes hard for you fight for Democrats, you vote for Democrats, even if you don't agree how it should be.
Yeah, right.
If you're not with them on every single issue.
I was just having this conversation this morning.
Do you feel as though you've been ostracized from communications?
I don't think I've been ostracized in the sense that I get the main point of what they're doing. I understand what their objective is as a party, and I know that it does help me.
Yeah.
But there's not as many people who sit down and decipher the facts like you and I do or whoever does.
Right.
There is a miscommunication, and I think it's very simple to adjust that communication. And I think that spending $20 million to learn about the brosphere, as they call it, which in itself is a little derogatory, is really just kind of silly and a waste of resources, and it makes us look dumb. The thing that I want to say is I support all these things. So take whatever issue it is. I support LGBT rights, right? I support reproductive freedom. I support a strong border. I support the military. I support a fair tax code, right?
Yep.
All these things I support. I support the war in Ukraine. I support
Ukraine.
I support Ukraine defeating the Russian Federation.
Let's be clear.
Yes, these are all things that I care about. But oftentimes, Democrats talk themselves to death, and they rely on rhetoric. They don't want to talk about things that actually matter to voters in the sense that they're not being straightforward with them. The reason why the Republicans are successful going on shows is that they can culturally get along with the people who are on those shows. So if it's Joe Rogan or Theo Vaughn or whoever, they can culturally get along with them, and typically it's going to sound pretty good. Democrats cannot go there because they can't laugh at an offensive joke, or they can't pontificate without relying on their talking points a lot of times.
Knowing that they're going to offend somebody
Knowing
else.
that we're going to offend someone because our tent is so big.
Yes.
Well,
can I interject?
Go ahead. Yeah,
so
for sure.
The initial response to this study that is happening is some of the findings are that I wrote this down just to make sure I don't misquote it. Democrats are seen as weak. Republicans are seen as strong. According to Politico, Democrats are seen as the Politico synthesis of this response. Democrats are seen as cautious and scripted. Republicans are seen as unafraid to offend, essentially.
Yeah.
This is something that I agree with, and I'm going to tie it back to you.
Yeah.
In so many of our conversations one-on-one on the phone, I think it's okay to speak candidly. I think that when you go into a public space or when you are presenting to a large audience, you should polish up remarks to an extent.
Of course.
But even when you and I talk one-on-one, I feel like I've very rarely, there have been times where it's happened where like I've been offended by something you've said, or I've been like, oh, that hit me the wrong way. It doesn't happen very often.
Right.
And I watch you. And I don't think you're doing this because of me specifically. I think you're doing this because you're afraid that somebody else is watching you almost.
Yes.
Where like you start to adjust your language and you kind of preface like what's about to come out of your mouth with like, and I want to be clear that X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and it's like a whole fucking like
that's the
laundry
way
list. And it's like, that's what so when I hear Democrats are seen as weak and cautious and scripted, that's where I agree with them. Because I think somebody like you is a little bit more just kind of blunt in how you speak. And
I've been working on it.
Yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And I think I think where Democrats can improve in this is just kind of coming out and saying what they think, knowing that it will offend some people. And I think that sometimes that's okay. The flip side of that is when you have a female messenger, and especially
which our party has a lot of them now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially Kamala Harris is a beautiful woman. Like, she's very pretty, and you have a very feminine female messenger who has a great resume and who has been in positions of leadership and has experience being tough.
Yeah. But if she leans into it too much, she gets canceled by the far left. So if she's like, I just locked away this cop killer for years and he's going to jail because he's a monster. Someone on the far left will be like, she was gleeful about someone's rights being taken away. And here's the thing. You have to, her background is fantastic. And I told you this when she became the nominee.
Yeah.
Run to it. Run for it.
Run on your background.
Yeah,
and I think she did. I think she leaned into the prosecutorial.
But she pontificated on it a little bit.
Yeah, but like, and not to make this too much about Harris specifically, but like
all women have that issue.
When you have a female messenger, going back to, and again, you immediately responded to my question about like when I say, do you feel alienated? You say, not really. I support LGBT rights. I think there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot of dude bros in real life.
Yeah.
And I don't say that in a derogatory way. I'm talking like stereotypically masculine guys.
Just guys who, they like to hang out.
Who don't care if someone's gay. They don't care. Like, it's fine with them. It doesn't matter to them. If you were to ask them, do you support gay marriage? They'd be like, yeah, why not? If you were to ask them about reproductive rights, they'd be like, yeah, sure. But that's where I get frustrated as someone who's, I think, a little further left than you.
Yeah,
not super further left, but further left.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I get frustrated. That kind of, sure, why not? That's cool with me, is not bankable at the ballot box.
Right, because it's not their top issue for them.
Right, and it's like, and I think there's a problem that we have when we automatically make the social issues, if you will, the enemy of like men's issues.
Well, and
But,
I think we can be for all the social issues. Well, depending. I think that's a given at this point. I don't
think it is. I think there's a lot of people who think it's over, who think like, oh, gay marriage, they got it 10 years ago. What are they still complaining about? Or abortion, like, I mean, like, I know people who have had abortions, and yet it's an issue where I'm like, it does not affect me on a daily basis. I am plugged into this, so I care very much.
Yeah, of course.
But like, if you don't think it affects you, you can have your opinion on it, and you can be like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, I support that. That's fine. And then you get to election season, and it's like, well, Kamala Harris is talking about this stuff that affects other people, not me. But we're in an age, 10 years ago, if somebody was like, gay rights are not my top voting issue, right after Obergefell, I'd be like, whatever. Like, we obviously we're in a defensive crouch. We have been for all of history, but like, we're in an age where that kind of apathy or like, sure, neutrality, it's fine with me. We need more than that. And I think that's where the Democratic Party sometimes pushes and says, we need you to care about these things. And there's a lot of men, and not just men, but I think there's a lot of people who say, these are not issues that affect me in my daily life. And therefore I see you pushing and catering to these interest groups that don't touch me, and therefore you don't care about me. Whereas it's like, no, we need you to care about these things because these people are losing rights.
Well, and I agree with that. But my point being is I think that they can continue to be, our party can continue to support a women's right to choose. We can continue to support LGBT rights. We can continue to support, all types of social issues, quotes around that, right? I think the thing that kills us is identity politics, in the sense that we have to make up certain plans for certain people, and this is my plan for gay people, this is my plan for black people, this is my plan for Asian, or there was one on Joe Biden's website, Asian and Pacific Islander Americans. What about the plan for everyone else? Like, there's no, you can't say, here's my plan for white America, right? And I'm not saying that as a negative, but people do not like the identity politics. They do not like being sliced up and diced. They don't like saying, well, the black people want this, and the white people want this, and the Asian people want this. Across the spectrum, we're losing men of all ages. We're losing minorities who are male, but in Asian women too, on dramatic levels. We're losing Latino men, and Asian women, and or Asian women and Asian men.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be getting them back by doubling down on what we're doing. My point being is, there is a crisis with men in this country that needs to be addressed, and I am not seeing that. And it might not even be a political answer. I think there's a cultural reckoning that we have to have as a people that's not political, but everything is political now.
Yeah.
So men are, according to the statistics, there are more female first-time home buyers in America. That's okay. That's fine. More women make more money than men across the board now. And more women graduate from college than men.
Yeah.
And the numbers for advanced degrees are also skyrocketing. Same with law degrees. More women are getting into law school. And when I say more, that more is good, of course, but I'm saying a super majority of it is what I'm saying.
Well, let's turn that on its head quickly, because it's not devil's advocate here, but let's turn it on its head, because when I hear you, and I don't disagree.
Well, and my point being is, we need to enfranchise everyone, including young men, and you should not be elevating other people at the expense of young men. Everyone should have an equal opportunity, is my goal.
I think, but so again, like, this is the difference between interpretation versus what's actually happening, in my opinion.
Okay.
Like, you're citing these stats, and I'm sure they're true.
Yeah. I might have misspoke, but
no,
I think they are true.
No,
yeah.
I'm not disputing what you're saying about like what's happening.
Yeah.
What I dispute is the attitude, and I don't believe you have this attitude. But like, I think you're trying to speak for what you feel is happening out there, and how people are responding to it. It's not zero sum. So like, when 25 years ago, when these numbers were flipped and men were dominating in all these areas and women were not.
Yeah.
It's, you get the kind of brush off response from a lot of people saying, well, if women want to be considered for these jobs or women want these positions or whatever, they need to step it up, or they need to the famous term of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And I'm not that's not my response to what you're saying. I'm not saying men need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but like women succeeding.
No, women
does not
should be
mean
succeeding.
that men cannot succeed.
But it's intentional in that point, where we are living in a world where young men are not being developed at the expense of other people because of cultural movements in the last 20 years.
Well, there have been programs put in place to like women in STEM and
which I support
exactly.
But
it's like,
but why isn't it just supporting STEM? And men and women can equally do that. That's what my point is.
The answer to that question is like, again, we're at a crossroads now where maybe we're seeing, okay, now we need to counterbalance a little bit. But like over the last,
but it's at the expense of a generation who had nothing to do with the sins of their grandfathers.
But I don't think that this is necessarily about the sins of grandfathers. I think that it's maybe we're seeing a response where now it's time to counterbalance a little bit, and these programs and these initiatives all rose from a need that was present years and years ago.
Agreed.
Maybe we've gotten to the point now where it's okay to say not foot off the gas for women or for whatever those other groups are, but maybe now we need to boost.
Yeah. They need,
you know what I'm saying?
Well, back in the day, so for example, I totally get it. So back in the day with affirmative action in the 90s, that was a big hot button issue back then. It is now gone, right? The Supreme Court overruled it. The issue is that was a very appropriate program at the time,
right?
Because African Americans and minorities were not getting into schools, and they were not getting, because based on either their prejudice, right? We're living in a world now where it's your zip code which determines your outcomes in life.
Yeah.
So a new affirmative action should be done through zip code, in my opinion. So a kid in Huntington, West Virginia, who has no opportunities, and a kid who's living in Los Angeles who has no opportunities, it doesn't matter their race, doesn't matter their gender, those people should be helped elevated up. Mm-hmm. But my point being is that it should just be equal at this point, where women should be elevated, but men should be elevated too. And I think we're living in a culture where men are being targeted in a sense that, you know, their grandfather, and I always use this as an example, their grandfathers are their fathers, like Harvey Weinstein, sexually assaulted women, were terrible human beings. They, you know, it was a men's world, you know what I mean? That is not the reality for these young guys. These young guys are coming out, they're growing up in school, and they're being told, you know, you have these problems, you're not going to be successful, you're not going to go to college, you are going to be good, you're good at football, you should go to the NFL, which they're never going to go to the NFL. And then the girls are, oh, you're such a good student, you're such a hard worker, you're going to go to Harvard, you're going to become a lawyer. And the conversation needs to change, where a rising tide lifts all boats. So in that perspective, the data doesn't lie. Young men are falling dramatically behind young women. Young women are the breadwinners in most families, and I'm talking about under 30.
Yeah.
They're the first-time home buyers. They're highly educated. Men, on the other hand, are not. This also answers another problem that we're facing, and I'm bringing it back to politics.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So that was more social, I guess.
Cultural.
It's cultural, social. Like it's bringing it back to politics. So the Democratic Party is not at fault for this. This is not the Democrats' fault. It's not the Republicans' fault.
But I'd say the voter base leans into it more.
I totally agree. I think that the Democratic Party is focused on a lot of things that matter. And like I said, when you started this off, these things I care about.
Yeah.
I know we disagree on this, but I have not heard a clear economic message from the Democrats since Hillary Clinton in the primary of 2016. I have not heard a single realistic policy platform from them, even though that they are there, but it's mostly rhetoric. The Republicans are pretty clear on what they're going to do. They're going to cut taxes
for rich people.
But they don't say that. They're going to cut taxes. They're going to loosen regulation. They're going to drill, baby, drill, and they are going to make America great again. The Democrats are saying, well, we need to make an economy that works for all, and then we need to, invest in this and this and that, and we need to be aspirational. what people want to hear across the spectrum are, especially young men who are maybe in a past generation, they would have gone and worked in the factory, right? Making $25 an hour, breaking their backs, hard labor, and they could provide for their families. They're not hearing that. And I think that the kitchen table economics needs to come back to the center of what we're talking about. And it can't be, we're going to end price gouging, because that doesn't mean anything to anyone. And it doesn't, the answer to that is also not, we're going to tax the billionaires so your life gets better. I agree with those things. I think people should pay a fair tax rate.
Right.
But you know what the average American wants to be when they grow up?
A billionaire.
A billionaire. So us going after, and I'm not protecting billionaires, but us going after the billionaires.
You raise a good point. I want to
jump in. Yeah, jump in.
You raise a good point, because I think that a lot of people get defensive of billionaires, millionaires, rich people. I'm putting that in quotes.
Everyone wants to be rich.
Because everyone thinks that they are just on the brink of having that moment where they become that person. The data shows that people think that they're 3 months pay away from being a billionaire, and they're actually 3 months away. So, like, I don't know how to drive this message home necessarily, because I think the Democratic Party has done a decent job of illustrating the wealth inequality, whatever. I don't know how to drive it home to people that it's like, you will not be Elon Musk. Somebody might. Somebody might be the next Elon Musk.
But he's one in a million.
He's one in billions of people on this earth. It's not going to happen to you. If it does, count your lucky stars or whatever, and then give a lot of your money away. But like, I don't know how to drive that home. And I think a lot of times,
I think they across the board, they struggle with that, with how to drive it home. And then that goes into the conversation we have about consultants, where they're like, no, just talk about taxing the billionaires and blah, blah, blah. No one wants to sit down and say, listen, we want you to have a good, comfortable life. We want you to be able to afford to go to Disney every year. We want you to have a nice house.
I need to go see Wicked again.
And go see Wicked. Or go to an NFL game,
Serious things here.
No, but no one sits down with that.
Right.
No one says, here's what we want. We are not going to make you a millionaire, right?
Right.
That's not the reality that most people live. The average wage in the United States for a family is $72,000 a year.
Right.
And that's awesome. That needs to be closer to 100,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Say something like that. You are worth making a good income because you work hard every day.
Right.
But talking about the minimum wage, which should be raised, that's not a viable issue because the majority of Americans do not make minimum wage. Talking about taxing billionaires doesn't work. All my friends want to be billionaires. They're never going to be billionaires, but they want to be a billionaire. You have to talk into their circle, say, I want to make your life better. Here's how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And then that answers a lot of questions. So this all stems back to kind of the social political capital that we have, where it takes everyone. Government is not here to solve your problems.
Right.
They're here to help your problems or to help make your problems better.
Help give you the building blocks to solve your problems.
Right. But your community is what's supposed to be the one that brings you up.
Right.
Young men are not facing that, and that's why they're gonna go for the regressive policy over the progressive policy. And the anger, and they feel left out of the equation. They sit at home and they play video games, or they watch pornography, or they are obsessed with sports, which is all good.
Do all that. I don't care.
They don't have friends. They don't have opportunity, and they get angry about it. I
would agree with some of that.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I have a different view than you, and that's totally cool.
I think, I wanted to also touch on this same political article. They went and, of course, interviewed people.
Of course.
They find their examples. So Politico described a Latino man in Las Vegas saying that he felt Harris, I'm bringing it back to 2024.
I get it, yep.
He felt that Harris was focused on Beyonce and Lady Gaga being on stage with her rather than him moving up in life. So this,
and I disagree with that.
I firmly disagree with this, and it's like this is where. So like I hear what you're saying, and I'm like, yes, that makes sense. And to be clear, I want the Democratic Party to work for everybody. I am not like anti-man. I am not anti-straight man.
I get that.
Yeah. I want men in the fold. I want a generation of men who can be who they are. They can play their video games, and they can do the things that they want to do.
Yeah.
Live the life they want to live. Shoot their guns.
Right.
That they purchased legally with safe gun
background
laws.
check. Yeah.
I want all of that for everybody. Like, I don't look at people and go, you shouldn't be allowed to do that.
Yeah.
I want all of that. my personal frustration and where I start to get angry is like the Beyonce and Lady Gaga of it all. Beyonce did one event with Harris. Lady Gaga did one event with Harris. And it generated, first of all, helped generate large crowds. Harris drew in crowds on her own. She didn't really need the celebrity aspect of it. But
Right. We were in Erie, and it was a packed house. I think it was 6,000 people.
And
there was no celebrity there.
Yeah.
Right.
And, well, Kyle Philbeck, the Left, Wrong, and Center host, was there.
Yes,
So,
you're right. You're right.
But they, this is where I get frustrated because people say this.
Yeah.
This man in Las Vegas says this.
Yeah.
The media reports on this, and there is no, and I'm not saying that the article then saying this is false because would necessarily push back on that and solve the problem.
Yeah.
She was not focused on Lady Gaga and Beyonce.
I agree with that.
And again, we can talk about the specific policy. We will move past 2024 at some point. We will be able to talk about new people at some point, but I'm going back in time.
This is the reality we are living in. Right.
The 2024 policy platform, Harris policy platform, could have probably been more robust, but it was there. And it could have been a little less general. She had 100 days. I will keep saying that. But it was there.
Yeah.
And the pillars of the ideas that she was speaking to, and you would call this rhetoric, is the price gouging and the first-time home buyer tax credit.
Which was ridiculous, though.
But, like...
People sniff through the bullshit on that one. I'm not trying to be mean. How are you going to give people $50,000 to be a first-time home buyer?
So the thing is, but like again, so you're illustrating one of my issues here.
Sure.
Is like Republicans do the same thing.
I'm totally with you.
Everybody in every political party says this is what I would like to do.
Right.
With the understanding that a lot of it might not happen.
But left people believe what they hear because they're aspirational and they want to get progress done. That's what I think. And
so that
Sorry, I'm like pointing my finger at you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I bring everything back to the voters.
I totally agree.
And not knowing, to use your phrase, how to play ball. There are plenty of people who are smart enough to understand listening to a candidate talk. Okay, she's saying that she wants to do these things. He's saying he wants to do these things. That's not necessarily going to happen in 4 years, in 8 years, but we have somebody in there who's pushing for the right thing. And hey, maybe if the cards shake out right and we have a map that works for us, we can get majorities to get some of this done. So this is my issue because this Latino man in Las Vegas
is very upset.
He has a candidate who is, not ever going to be perfect, but who is speaking to him, saying, I want to help. And here's my general ideas that I've come up with in 100 days. Again, I feel like the Harris platform would have been much more thorough had she had a full cycle.
Right.
This is where I get frustrated, and this is where I start to use the phrase bad faith, because I think that there are people who, I don't know if it's a refusal to dig deeper, a refusal to understand, or if it's just true and genuine ignorance. But those people go somewhere, and they go to the anger, and it's like how...
Americans are angry in general. They're upset about
Americans
things.
are angry in general, but they also, whoever's in the White House, you get a brief honeymoon at the beginning.
Yep.
And then
it
all
craters.
of the polling is 65% of Americans say that we're headed in the wrong direction. It doesn't matter who it is.
Right. And then everyone on the sidelines, so when everyone was trashing Biden when he was president, they're like, we need to have a new candidate because his poll number, I'm like, it was Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang was saying that in 2021. I'm like, if you made Andrew Yang the president today, you would walk in and you would see him with an approval rating of 54%, right? And then 2 months later, it would be 41%. It doesn't matter who it is.
Right. But that's my issue.
Yeah.
Is
going forward,
you have to, and I think the population used to be better about this. I'm not one of those people that looks back and says we should have things the way they were then. But I think that internet brain rot, a sense of, I think Bernie Sanders really fucked us in some ways, where he came in and, you had the Sanders, you talked about Hillary Clinton in 2016 and policy. She had policies, he had ideas. Right. And I think that since that primary, a lot of people, maybe even going back to Obama, a lot of people are just like, why can't you give me everything all at once? And I think the population used to be better. You look at the approval ratings of presidents 20 years ago, they start higher, and their lows were generally higher than they are now.
Bill Clinton left office with a 63% approval rating.
Obama
That's
left
unheard.
with like what, in the 50s?
It was in the 50s.
I think the population used to be better at understanding the role of Congress, at understanding what the president can and can't do.
Right.
And at understanding the difference between campaigning and governing. I'm not saying we've ever been perfect or great at it.
Yes.
I think we used to be better.
I think what's changed is the 24-hour news cycle,
Yeah.
social media, the internet.
Yeah.
I think that our founders thought that our voters, the American people, obviously when they wrote this, they thought it was going to be only men who own land, but they thought that everyone would be paying attention, seeing the same set of facts, and making a decision.
Right.
That's not the reality we live in anymore.
Right.
I agree with you about 2016. I think it goes back to some earlier times, but I think people want radical change, and then when they don't get it, they get really upset. And that's kind of my problem with, and it's not Harris specifically, but it's even Biden too in 2020. When they ran, they were promising the moon to the voters, which is what makes them one of
But the
voters are the problem here. It's not the politicians.
I know, but what they delivered in 2020, or what they promised in 2020 was, we're in a fucking pandemic. We are going to get back to a sense of stable leadership, which we got. Right. And we are going to work to dig us out of this hole, which we got.
Americans don't give enough. And this is the thing. Okay, so I'm not defending Trump, but you need to hear what I'm going to say because I'm talking about Obama and Trump. Okay, so Obama gets elected in 2008. He has 263 seats in the House. He has 60 seats in the Senate, right? I'm abbreviating. He passes the Affordable Care Act and the stimulus? I forget what it's called. He passes Dodd-Frank. He passes a bunch of things. Really cool stuff. Voters don't show up. Well, they first don't like what he passed, even though that's what he said he was going to do.
Right.
They don't show up for him in the midterms. The reason why we lost 63 House seats is because the Democrats didn't show up in the midterms. That's the true story.
Right.
Obviously, we were going to lose House seats. We probably would have lost 30 if Democrats just showed up.
Yeah.
Okay. Fast forward. 2012, he runs again, and they're like, well, he didn't do much for us. But they didn't show up in 2010. Okay. Now let's go to Trump. Trump runs on building the wall. Didn't do that. 2016, he gets elected narrowly by the Electoral College. He gets in. What's the only bill he passed? Major bill.
Tax cut.
A tax cut. Added how much to the debt? $6 trillion. Crazy. Okay. He passes that. His Republican billionaires are very happy with him. That's all he did. His voters don't show up in 2018, and he now can't do anything, right? I'm not saying I'm glad he can't do anything, but our voters do not show up, and they do not help our causes. Here's the thing. You bring up a great point. Civics is dying in America. They think that people can give them the moon tomorrow.
Right.
It's the 6-minute abs versus the 1-minute abs versus the no-minute abs.
Free abs.
And I get it. There are things. I have medical bills. You know what I mean? I'm paying a medical bill every month.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm frustrated too. But to completely destroy the medical system in this country would destroy a lot more than what you think it would be. So work in the confines of what we actually live in. Don't pitch a utopia that doesn't exist just yet. My point being is, in 1948, Harry Truman, my favorite president, don't ask me why, but he's my favorite president. He dropped the nukes. He's a great president though. Other than that, okay, he gets sworn in as president because FDR dies. 1946, all the GIs come home. The soldiers, they come home from World War II. They then go back to their jobs. Oh wait, women are in their jobs. They're really frustrated because they can't make their income. They're stop lost, right? There's been 4 years of all these young men who went to war. They can't come back. They can't find jobs. They're upset. Women are in their positions. They can't. Then they go back in. Maybe some of them were leading platoons in World War II of 12 men or 24 men. And then they're in entry-level work. They're pissed. They elect a Republican Congress in 1946. The Republican Congress, similar to what we're in right now, gets sworn in 1947. They do not pass a single bill while they're in Congress. All they want to do is complain about how Harry Truman's a dirty liberal. The only thing that they pass is gutting unions. And that's I forget what the bill's called, but
Tale as old as time.
not Smoot-Hawley. I forget what it's called, but they gut unions, and that's why the labor movement kind of ended effectively in the 1950s. Okay, Harry Truman is running for re-election in 1948. Actually, he's running for election in 1948. He is very unpopular. People do not like Harry Truman. So he decides, okay, they need a civics lesson. They need to know what I can do and what I can't do. And of course, this is different times. But he goes across the country on a train to little towns across the American West, in Ohio and New York, everywhere.
Yeah.
And he gives speeches. What's his speech called? The Do Nothing Congress of 48. And he goes to war against the Congress and says this Congress could be passing, and he lists out the things that he wants them to pass. And guess what? He wins the election based on that. He was told, everyone said he was going to lose, that Dewey defeats Truman. He went to war against the Congress and said, they're the ones who are passing the laws. I'm the one who's supposed to sign them. They're not passing me the laws. And then in the summer of 1948, he says, here, I agree, and this is called triangulation. I agree with what the Republican Congress wants. I am calling an emergency session of Congress in July to pass, and he lists all the things that the Republicans say that they want to do. He says, I'm calling them back. They have to do it and send it to me, and I will sign every single one of them. And guess what? He calls them back. They don't pass a single bill. This is what effective government could be. You could have someone like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Barack Obama do the exact same thing. You know the only president who's ever done a similar thing as Harry Truman in our lifetimes?
Tell me, Grant.
Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton comes in, the contract with America.
How did I know? I knew.
So Newt Gingrich, same thing. He has a list of things that he wants to get done while he's Speaker of the House.
Yep.
Bill Clinton, and it's a little different than 1948. Bill Clinton goes, okay, perfect. And he says, yeah, I support term limits. I support a balanced budget amendment. I support all the things that they go.
Yeah.
And guess what happens? They do actually pass them into law. And guess what happens? The Supreme Court strikes down term limits because it's not in the Constitution. It's unconstitutional. And it strikes down the balanced budget amendment. You know why? Because it's not in the Constitution. So Bill Clinton becomes popular because he takes all their positions and say, okay, you want to do this? Let's get it done. That's what effective government is, and I think that's what people want. It's not the only people who have this angst that I'm tapping into, and I'm giving them a compliment, are the progressives. The progressives have this angst. They just don't have the solutions for it.
Right. And so, but like...
Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, that's all. It's all good. In today's day and age, though, the issues have shifted from balanced budget amendment and term limits and unions and whatever to... Are black people people? Should we
I totally agree.
Harm trans people in this way or this way? So we've moved into an era where a President Harris, who, according to Elon Musk's tweet, would have been elected with a Democratic House and a Republican Senate, in order to triangulate in that way, would have had to have been like, yeah, let's meet in the middle on these horrible things. So like, I
get what you're saying, but they won't pass them is what I'm trying to say. Biden did this very ineffectively, in my opinion, just because he's not a good communicator. That border bill, right? The border is such an issue for people, which I know we disagree on how high of a level people were upset about that. He said, okay, bet. Here's James Langford from Oklahoma, write me a bill.
Right.
He writes them the bill. It's a pretty right-wing bill. He says, I support this. Pass it. They can't pass it. This is all looping back to what I'm saying. So I'm bringing it all the way back. That bill had every single thing the Republicans wanted.
Can you tell me in the Truman instance and in the Clinton instance, how the media
it was a different time.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. So the media, right. So my point being is, though, that they didn't pass the bill
because Biden and Harris took the blame for the border bill.
Correct. Even though it wasn't
squarely on the shoulders of Republicans.
It is, but they weren't effective communicators in the sense of just barnstorming across the country saying, we could have shut down this border. We could have added 20,000 more Border Patrol agents. And using the words against them, they didn't do it. And I know that might not sound nice. They couldn't sprint across the country and go down to El Paso and say, this border you see right here could have been locked up but the Republican Party didn't do it. And that's what I think
I
people in general want.
And I think that's the difference between the Biden candidacy and the Harris candidacy, because she did do those things. She did say those things. And all the progressives who, again, I think a lot of people project onto a woman specifically, going back to the female messenger.
Yep.
They project what they want to see. They project a maternal, fun, and if you aren't those things, then you're not liked. But Harris did pivot to the center, I think, beautifully on the border, and I think she gave several speeches specifically about the border and that border bill. It was too late.
Well, and the thing that, I'm not trying to nitpick your argument, but she went on Fox News once. She went on whatever once. Like, she could have barnstormed that. And when I say barnstorm, go on the media, go on Joe Rogan, go on Theo Vaughn's podcast, and just literally hammer them to death on it.
Yeah, but I think
take their positions if they really. So again, another.
But I think that's where we get lost up in the consultant, because I think she had a team. I mean, I know Rogan was in the cards, and I believe that he is the one who pulled out of that interview. If you read the reports, she was in. Where does he record? Somewhere in Texas,
in Austin. Her aide said, "You need to come to D.C." and he said, "No, you come to Austin." Go to Austin. You had a rally in Houston with Beyonce turning this all the way back. Just go to Austin and record the thing and be tough on it. And that's the thing that bugs me the most, is where we could have these candidates do this and be effective. And another one is trans sports. If you really want to ban the 12 people in the NCAA from following their path, it's 12 people. This is not an issue. So we agree on that. This is not an issue. Okay, pass me a clean bill that does that. And they can't. They would not be able to do it. The Republicans would not be able to do it.
Right.
And then go to war and say, these Republicans say they want to end this, but they can't even pass a bill.
But I think our takeaway here, and I think where we find common ground on this is, and we've ventured from the original topic, but I think in a good way.
Yes.
Like, I think we agree that the consultant and the carefully curated speech patterns and I need to watch what I say because I think that we need candidates who, and I think we do get candidates who say what they mean, but I think we just need people to speak plainly. Like, when we talk about messaging and communication, I think the messaging is clear. I think it's very clear what the Democratic Party stands for. I think when you want to fill in the blanks with some of the passion and some of the specifics, let Harris be Harris, let Biden be Biden, let Newsom be Newsom.
Right.
Like, let these people operate as they are.
And I think Newsom's been doing that.
Newsom is great, and as a communicator.
Yeah.
And this actually transitions into one of the other topics I want to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Which is left-wing media.
Yeah.
How everyone's saying we need a left-wing Joe Rogan. And I'm going to pull up my phone in a second and do maybe a dramatic reading of a post exchange that I had on Threads. It was Threads, not Bluesky. But Newsom, I'm looking at Newsom responding to these protests in LA and how Trump has handled it. I don't know that I am intelligent enough to speak to the nuance of all of that because I want to not go on for 3 hours, but concisely speak to the nuance of it all. Yeah. He's been a master at responding to Trump.
Mm-hmm.
He has made a very effective case as to these are demonstrators. They are peaceful for the most part. We are prosecuting the ones who are not. It's happening in a
the same thing
tiny...
with the George Floyd riots.
Yeah.
The people who committed crimes there were prosecuted.
Yeah.
They did not get away.
Right.
And the Republicans have created a narrative where they go, well, what about January? When we say, January 6th, which they were prosecuted, they go, well, what about, why didn't you care about George Floyd? Those people were prosecuted.
Yeah.
So continue. Sorry.
But Gavin Newsom is viewed as a dirty corporate centrist by the left. And it's funny, but it's not, because I'm looking at 2028 people in terms of like having a star.
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom's the closest thing we have right now.
I mean, like him.
Pete Buttigieg is a star, but again, we've talked about him at length already. Gavin Newsom is a star on TV.
Yeah.
He is clear. He captivates attention.
Yep.
There's something about him. And it's
He's very handsome.
And it's like, I'm looking at him now, and I'm not one of those people that like somebody has a good moment on TV. I've talked about this.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, that they had a good moment on TV, they should run for president. I've been watching Newsom for years.
Yep.
The only thing that has given me pause about him running for president is his home state, being California, because are people going to want a California liberal? But but like I'm looking at people who I think can carry exactly what we're talking about into a general election in 2028, and I'm like, a Gavin Newsom with like a Newsom Bashir ticket, a
Newsom Whitmer ticket,
something like that.
Newsom
where it's
Moore
like,
ticket.
And I'm hearing the screams in my head of all the people who are like, but that doesn't.
But that's when Gavin Newsom needs to say, you know what, you guys are lunatics. We weren't going to win you anyway. Stop it.
Right. And so to my point, I now.
And let me add one thing about Gavin. I wanted to say
Did you
real
just say
quick.
Gasm?
Gavin Newsom. The thing that I love about it is that border czar that Trump has is like, we're going to arrest Gavin Newsom. And you know what Gavin Newsom did? He goes, yeah, do it, buddy. That's the type of fight people want. Because you can't keep getting away with some of this rhetoric that they're using without calling them on it. Gavin Newsom, if he's arrested, he'll be fine. He will have the top lawyers in the world working for him.
Yeah.
He's putting on that fight, and honestly, over this last week, I've really gathered a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
So, and the absolute demanning of Ron DeSantis in that debate was just so good.
The disembowelment of
Ronald.
It
was so good. All right, Kyle, let's do the dramatic reading.
I don't know if it's going to be a dramatic reading, but I had an exchange. I want to talk about left-wing media and how everyone's saying that we need a left-wing equivalent to what's happening on Twitter. We need a left-wing Rogan. And I have no faith in this strategy because if we're going to spark notes this shit right now, the long and short of it is right-wing media exists to trash Democrats, trash liberals, trash progressives, not just the people, but the ideas. Left-wing media in places like Bluesky, which I know you're not on, but I joined it after the election because I was like, I'm curious as to what this is about. And I go on there and I scroll, and it's like, it's people that it's like, I mostly agree with what you are for.
Yeah.
But then every post is a Democrat bashing. It's like the Dems need to do this. The Dems need to, and I have a whole episode from early on. It's me talking alone into a microphone about blaming the Dems with the trademark sign next to it. Because it's just the most overused. So I have no faith in this. And a prime example here, I don't even know which camera.
Dramatic reading.
Is on Threads. They were talking about the 2024 election, of course, and how the Democratic policy platform is unpopular, which is false.
Not true.
By numbers. This person dressed like a cat in their response said, didn't they raise over $1 billion just to lose an election to a rapist? One might say their core message was unpopular enough to lose an election. So I normally try to ignore these people, but I was in a bad mood that day and I responded.
Me too.
I said, one might say that voters were effectively manipulated, lied to, suppressed, and again made a terrible decision to elect a rapist instead of a black woman, but that would make too much sense. So yeah, let's blame the core message, 9 out of 10 of which Democrats win on in isolation every time. Fuck out of here was how I closed that.
Oh my gosh.
This person dressed like a cat responded, so it had to have been someone else's fault and not the party whose sole job it was to win an election with the $1 billion+ they were given. They couldn't have fought that misinformation with that $1 billion+. My response was, correct, well done. You've almost arrived at the understanding that elections are decided by voters. Keep going. You'll get there. I got another response from the cat person saying, they really couldn't have used that $1 billion+ to fight the misinformation. Damn, bro, why do we even donate to politicians or political campaigns in the first place then? So I see the we and I go, maybe this person is operating in good faith and is making a bad point, but is actually trying to solve for these problems.
Yeah, right.
So my response was, what did you do last year to make sure Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris was elected president? How many doors did you hit? What policy positions did you amplify on their behalf? How many undecided voters did you convince? And the cat person said, why would I try to get someone elected who defends an apartheid state's right to self-defense?
Boom!
What's cool about promoting someone who believes that Israel has a right to defend itself against resistance to genocide?
There we go. Very serious person, Kyle.
So,
Kyle, you're supporting an apartheid state. I don't know what that means, but you're supporting it. Don't pull up a map. I don't want to find it on a map, but it's bad because social media told me it's bad.
Social media told me it's bad. But
TikTok.
But that's the overarching point that I have here.
Yeah.
And since those screenshots, like I posted something on TikTok the other day about Trump's approval, and I got just all these people flooding my comments with the lesser of two evils argument. Senator Alex Padilla was assaulted yesterday.
A United States senator.
A sitting United States senator who immediately identified who he was.
Yep.
And then they lied about it, and the media was like, well, they made an error.
Both sides.
Was assaulted yesterday. Cory Booker went onto the floor of the Senate to defend him, and the comments that I saw on Instagram were not about what was happening, but about how Booker voted to. I'm sure he'll be back to voting for Trump's nominees in no time. And it's like we can't. Like I'm almost beyond anger because it's like we simply have to win without these people.
We need to get rid. They are not part of the party.
They're not part of.
They're
the party,
not good faith people.
But beyond the party in with the trademark symbol, it's less about the party for me and more about the fact that these are not people we can rely on.
No, they're not good faith actors.
And they hide it. So they kind of they comment or they interact and they present themselves as.
I'm just asking questions.
I'm asking questions. I'm part of the coalition that you're trying to win over. So. Whatever, and then you get into it with them, and then it turns out like I was on TikTok last night commenting back and forth with people. Follow at Left Wrong Center Pod on TikTok, commenting back and forth with people who would come in and try to sound like they were operating from a good faith place. And
they always do,
and then they always reveal through the conversation that they did not vote. Right. That they don't participate in the lesser of two evil pot. Right. Which my response to that last night was, well, yes, you do because you put us here.
Right. It's the 2016 argument all over again.
So that's the frustration is like all of the everything, every complaint you have with Democratic messaging, Democratic policy, whatever, like I'll hear it in a day and age where we're not running against the same fucking guy for
3 times
for 10 years.
Yep.
We have had 10 years and these chaos agents refuse. And
this Sunday is the 10-year anniversary of the escalator.
Ugh.
Are you excited?
No.
But Kyle, they're not good faith actors. They're not people who are serious.
So I don't want left-wing media if this is what that means.
But left-wing media, you go on YouTube, and I think they're all in good faith, but I'm not going to say the names, but they have the YouTube channels. They're the white men. They're the Biden bros, you know who I'm talking about? And they have the shows, and they're like, Cory Booker just demolished.
Oh,
yeah. And it's like, no, like.
Well, that's manufactured.
Right. It's manufactured. People don't like that. People want to hear what you actually stand for. And you know what? If Cory Booker votes for a Trump appointee, it's not the end of the world.
No. Don't get me wrong. I have an issue with that vote. But
it's not the end of the world.
It's not going to, if Cory Booker, let's say Cory Booker is my senatorial nominee or my presidential nominee, that is not going to stop me from voting for him.
You know what will stop me from voting for my Senate nominee in 2028 if he's the nominee? Both sidesing what just happened to Alex Padilla yesterday.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
He is a United States senator, and John Fetterman goes, well, we need to ratchet it down on both sides.
Yeah.
No. He's a U.S. senator. And I believe in the power of the office. That's why it bothers me that he wears shorts on the Senate floor.
Yeah.
That is someone who is a elected person, but with 63% of the vote, by the way, who went to a hearing. He is one of 100 U.S. senators that is in a federal building. He is a U.S. senator, and he was tackled and manhandled by goons.
And he's a Latino senator from California. That's not on accident.
That is wrong. And then you have people like you have John Fetterman, who voted for Kristi Noem, by the way.
Yeah.
Who is both sidesing it. There's no both sides. It's wrong.
It's wrong.
It's wrong.
This is my Connor Lamb bat signal.
I want my Connor so bad.
Grant worked for Lamb in 2022. I voted for Lamb in 2022, and then I happily voted for Fetterman.
I voted for Fetterman too. I have a picture on my ballot.
I don't have patience for the.
I cannot do it anymore. I can't just excuse things. But here's the thing: I'm a good faith actor. I want to vote for the Democrat.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Same.
I'm not here to shit on them.
Right.
This thing with purity is insane.
Yeah.
It is insane. It's like the gay marriage thing in 2016. You know who was against gay marriage? Bernie, Obama. And then he came out for it. Hillary Clinton was against gay marriage when everyone was against gay marriage. It's okay that she evolved on it.
Yeah.
And we're living in a different world right now. The purity politics have to stop. And people have complex views that don't fit into a binary, in my opinion.
And people also have views that
left-wing people are very comfortable with talking about gender binary, that there's more than the two binaries. There's non-binary, of course. It's the same thing with politics. People have different views on different things, and they do not line up 100% of the time.
Right. I
agree with the Democrats probably on 70% of what they stand for, and I agree with Republicans 30%. That's realistic.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. You probably agree with something Republicans stand for, like 5%. You know what I mean?
There are old school Republican values where I'm like, okay, I can understand.
I can get that.
But I'm talking values and not necessarily.
I
policies.
totally agree.
We could get into that another time.
PEPFAR, the George Bush's anti-AIDS campaign in Africa. We can agree on that. Like, that's good.
Sure.
That's a good policy I support. Right. That's a Republican policy.
Yeah. But I don't have hope for any kind of, like, I don't want left-wing media if left-wing media is going to mean, if left-wing media is going to mean that a poll comes out for 2028 showing Pete Buttigieg on top with AOC right below him, and some little leftist on Bluesky, this was Bluesky, responding that the country will never vote for a gay man, and you know what, maybe in this case a little homophobia is okay if it keeps Pete out of the way.
God.
That's not. I think you and I have talked privately about the memes with the planes dropping bombs, and it's like the difference between Democrats and Republicans, and it's the Republican one is just a black plane dropping bombs, and the Democrat one has like the
pride flag.
Yes, she can, and the pride flag, and like whatever, and it's like, yeah, I'll take that second one actually.
I'll take the one that has equal rights for everyone at home.
Yeah, and like somebody last night cited Harris's comment at the Democratic National Convention last year about having
the lethal military,
lethal fighting force. It's like, I want that. Thank you.
Yeah,
I want to have a military that, I mean, like, you can conflict and war. Like,
war is bad.
You can get into all of it, and like, I'm not advocating for war. I want a military that keeps us safe.
I root for the United States of America, no matter what it is. When it's that situation. The thing that also bothers me about, and we're kind of going into the horseshoe, which I think this is a good conversation that we're going into. I know America has problems, right?
Yeah.
And this is where we're going. This is where we're going at. I'm bringing this all back to this. You know America has problems. We both love America, right?
Right.
These people fundamentally do not love America. They do not want to make it a better place. They want to destroy it and rebuild it in their own image. But the thing is, they would rather lose everything in the process of doing that, and that's not what I'm for.
They think they'd rather lose it because on paper
they live in a fake world.
Right, on paper
it's
heroic to think that you're one of the main characters in Les Mis, who all die, by the way, that are bringing on a revolution.
Right.
And you're not. You're not gonna. Who says you're gonna survive whatever?
I do not.
Coming.
And then they're very nonchalant about things that are not okay.
Yes.
Like, they're like,
homophobia is cool now. It's fine.
No, if you're a black man, and I said this in 2020, if you're a black man but you don't agree with them, you're not a real black person.
Yeah.
If you're gay, if you're a gay man,
if you're Pete Buttigieg,
you're not gay enough.
You're not
That's
gay enough.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he's married to a literal man.
Yeah.
Like, he is gay.
Pretty gay.
And I just don't know where they're at. I don't understand it. I want to make this country better. That's why I'm a Democrat. I believe in the principles that we have, but these people, as long as we continue to cater to them, we are not going to win this.
And it's also like, you could pause time in 2024 and then skip to 2044. Skip ahead 20 years. If things are better 20 years from now, and we've revitalized everything, and we've had this revolution,
we've had the utopia.
Yeah, you could maybe go, yeah, this was the goal. What happens in those 20 years to get there? How many people die? How many people are kicked off their health insurance? How many people like lose their homes, whatever, in the process of getting there? That's why the revolution does not appeal to me.
The revolution can't appeal to me. We live in the real world. You and I both have jobs. We both have families of our cats and dogs, and we both have mortgages. We both pay taxes. We live in the real world, Kyle. A lot of these people do not live in the real world.
Right. And
I'm not trying to be mean to them, but that's the truth. They are living in a reality that is not possible, and it comes all the way back to what civics is.
Right. But I also wanted to say, like, our sister-in-law, I was visiting them in New Jersey on my way home from seeing Kelly Clarkson, and gay, and she was talking about how, you know, we were talking about democratic messaging, and her and our brother were talking about how the Democrats are not, you know, communicating effectively, blah, 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 blah. And I was pushing back, and I was talking about how Biden and Harris both very clearly communicated the stakes on democracy. And she said something which was like, yeah, a lot of Americans think they don't want democracy. They think democracy sucks. So, like,
right.
It's also very easy for us who understand what democracy is and isn't, and understand that democracy sucks and until you compare it to all the other forms of government in the world.
I think maybe having a parliamentary system would be better. That's democracy still. But we live in the system that we live in.
Right.
I've met people who come from authoritarian regimes, and it's not good.
Right.
And the people on the far left and the people on the far right want one thing, and they want complete control, and that's not how it works.
Right.
Even the communist utopia of China is not actually a communist utopia. It's a one-party state that enriches themselves off the labor of everyone else.
Yeah.
They do not want that. America is still the richest country in the world per capita, per everything.
Yeah.
We are a good country. We have our problems. Let's solve the problems, and let's work together to do it.
Yeah.
But it takes both sides to work together.
Right.
So it can't just be Democrats saying, I want to work together. Republicans have to want to solve it.
And that's the other thing is, like, somebody, I'm just, I guess, pulling up comments in my mind, but somebody commented on one of my TikToks this week and was like, why do Democratic voters never hold their politicians accountable? It feels like the Democratic Party holds their voters hostage. And like, I can understand the sentiment of that. Like, I understand
it.
Because we are afraid. We were, again, just talking to Daria Devlin about people, like Democrats being afraid of primaries. Like, and this is why, because it's like then you have to have uncomfortable conversations where you're saying you're not doing this, or I could do this better than you. We can't hold our politicians, the people on our side, truly, I guess, to the account that we're talking about, when the alternative, we have to self-preserve in order to win, because if we don't win, we get fascists. So it's like it's a
primary is an okay thing.
I know, but what I'm saying is it's a valid question until you recognize the context of it all, which is that the Democratic Party is the only real viable option, and the real argument between the real smart people in this country are the left and the center.
Right.
Which is why this podcast is what it is, titled what it is. Because those are the two parties, in my opinion, that are actually legitimate and valid.
Right. And we keep defeating our centrists. Republicans and Democrats get defeated. That's the truth. John Tester just got lost re-election. Joe Manchin lost re-election. Mitt Romney didn't run again.
Democratic centrists often get knocked out.
Bob Corker didn't run again.
In general elections, but
that's what I mean.
I've noticed that left-wingers, we are better at dealing with...
We police our own.
Yes.
We have probably 10... So there's a lot of people in the Progressive Caucus. Not all of them are lunatics, right? There's probably 15 members of Congress that are crazy. That's what I would say on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, it's probably over 40 to 50 to 60 of them who are actual crazy people. And we police ourselves. We take out our crazy incumbents. And don't get me started on, oh, no, it's about Israel. Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman weren't doing their job.
Right.
That's why they lost their job.
Yeah.
That's why they lost their job.
Right.
Daria Devlin wasn't ideology. It wasn't an ideology that took out Joe Schember. People wanted change.
It was issues.
It was issues about it. They want real leadership to take care of the issues that we all face.
Yeah.
We need to realize that. And yes, some of these people are not serious. And until they want to start taking things seriously, we don't need to be catering to them. And we're so afraid of catering to them. Like, we shouldn't be doing that. And in 2020, it was BLM, which, again, real thing.
Yeah.
And now it's the Palestine thing.
Yep.
And if I see one more drag queen talking about Palestine, I'm going to lose my mind. That's what I want to say about that.
Yeah.
Because
I agree with you.
It's just, insane. It is a war. It's horrible. We need to come to an end. It needs to come to an end. Don't sacrifice your moral values because you think that this is a racial issue or you think that this is a social justice issue. It's a war that's been going on for 70 years.
Yeah.
Your drag queen is not going to solve that.
Correct. I do want to, as we sort of move to the wrap up, in terms of talking about primaries and holding politicians accountable.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, Antonio Delgado, the lieutenant governor of New York City, New York State. I don't know why
it's been a long day.
It has been a long day already. The lieutenant governor of New York State, Kathy Hochul, second in command,
who she picked,
who she handpicked, is challenging her for the office. He announced that he would not be running again or running for re-election as her number 2, and is running against her now. I don't hate Kathy Hochul. I don't love Kathy Hochul. She's just kind of there.
She's just a person. The accidental governor, some would say.
Yeah. I think this is interesting, and I want to watch this race because, I mean, I think Delgado specifically, I don't know that much about him. I think it's interesting that a sitting number 2 is challenging sitting number 1.
He's challenging her from the center because she's centrist. He's saying you're ineffective. We have the majorities to get things done.
Yes.
And that's what centrism is, in my opinion, is knowing how to count. He's coming in, it might be a little more left-wing, but he knows where he's coming from, and he's saying, listen, you have the majorities to get a lot of things done, and you're going after really unpopular things that people don't like the congestion fee or the EMTA issues.
Even though the congestion fee is working.
Yeah, but people don't like it. But yes, it's a tax. He's saying, we're going to go after you because you deserve a primary challenger because you don't know how to work with people.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
And I think it's interesting because, I mean, there are several issues where he's broken from her.
Yes.
One of the more obvious ones being that she was all in with Joe Biden after
she was
that
looking
debate.
for a cabinet spot.
Yeah, and he said, no, we need to replace this guy.
Yep.
And it turns out in retrospect that he was
right.
And I just think this is interesting because I have historically also been like don't rock the boat. If we look like we're in a comfortable enough position, or if the numbers show that the incumbent is the most likely to win, don't rock the boat.
Yeah.
Because we can't afford losing as a result of it.
They're having a healthy primary. That's a healthy primary.
My mind is changing on this because I like we're seeing members of the if you will old guard, Gary Peters, Jean Shaheen, Dick Durbin, hold on. Other examples of people stepping down.
Yeah.
Because they are either old or they feel like their time has come.
Yeah. And we have a new generation of really young people running for those. Haley Stevens in Michigan or Mallory McMorrow in Michigan. I hope it's Haley Stevens.
I think it will be.
I hope.
I think it will be. I think the polling shows that so far, don't you think?
Is it? I haven't looked.
From what I've seen, she seems to be the strongest challenger to Mike Rogers.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Mallory McMorrow is just an opportunist. And then what's the guy in New Hampshire? Chris Pappas, gay, young man, U.S. representative. He's running.
Yeah.
Really great. In Illinois, the lieutenant governor, I'm not too sure how old she is, but she's young. She's African-American.
Yeah.
We have, and then Angie Craig in Minnesota.
Oh, Christina Smith is retiring too.
Yeah, so Chris Smith, and so we have a new generation to lead.
Yeah.
We're going to be that way, and they are all running on the future. So let's get that going. And it's not ageist, it's just the truth.
I don't think it's well in Hochul's instance, I don't think it's ageist, but I think most people, like, I look at the state of New York and I'm like, it's a blue state.
Right. With some red streaks.
Recently. But it is a blue state. And it should be a safe blue state, and it should be like a 20-point win blue state.
Well, and I want to say something about New York here, and I think you might agree with me. Andrew Cuomo, right? He's running for NYC mayor.
The topic everyone's afraid to discuss.
Yeah, which, you know what, like, good for him for trying to get a comeback. Okay. He apparently sexually harassed people, right?
Yeah.
And that's terrible. That's bad. I'm against that.
I'm going to raise my hand here.
Yeah.
I'm a person who has been repeatedly sexually harassed in a work setting. By a couple of different people.
Yep.
I can't really go into it, but it has happened to me.
Yep.
In the same job by multiple people. I feel strongly about the issue. I had a reaction when I read about Cuomo. I have very mixed feelings on this man.
Well, I have mixed feelings too. And here's the thing. I wish that he would just come out and be like, hey, listen, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm better for it. And give me another chance. But that's not what my point is about the NYC mayor. I wanted to mention one other thing.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
But okay. He goes down because of that. Who brought those allegations forward?
Who was it?
The Attorney General of New York. Tish James, right?
James. Yeah.
Okay, so she brings it up against him. Okay, that's cool. She brings out the report. Okay, that's cool. It's legit. Like, let's read it. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, he goes, I'm resigning. Guess who announces for governor the next day? The Attorney General who just brought this charge on. People, and this is going back to my entire thing, people do not like that. They do not like the politics of it. Why would you bring up a case, he resigns, which he was never charged, by the way, for the crimes that she charged him with, and then you announce that you're running for governor?
Yeah.
This is the thing that kind of loops this all together, where it's people want real leaders. They don't want opportunists. They don't want to be challenged. They don't want to take down a guy and then say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to run for it now.
And I think
that's a problem.
I think the bow that I'll put on that thought is whatever problems the Democratic Party does have
is nothing compared to what the Republicans have.
So the Republicans are all that. So again, I cannot put the blame on the Democratic Party when the Republicans are nothing but trash. Well, I will say, if we can clean up some of this stuff on our side, it gives people far less of an excuse to blame those pieces.
I want to say one thing here, and I totally agree with you about the Elon Musk Trump thing.
The breakup?
The breakup, which is now they're back together.
Yeah.
He tweeted that Donald Trump
is in the Epstein files.
Is the Epstein files. Okay, that's a serious charge, right? But, okay, so he knew that, right? But he still funded him.
Right.
He still funded all the Senate candidates. He still wanted to be part of Doge. So he knew that Trump is on these Epstein files with underage girls. Okay, if that's real, whatever, that's horrible. He also knew that Trump was charged with, what was the charge? Was it sexual deviance? It's something. He wasn't charged with rape. He was charged with something else related to that.
Yeah.
And he was convicted of it. So he's a convicted sexual predator. And that wasn't enough for Elon Musk. But then when Elon Musk didn't get his way, he goes, oh, he's on the Epstein files. But he knew about that.
Yeah.
This is the problem. We have nothing compared to them. We're having a healthy conversation about what's going on in Democratic politics. This is a healthy conversation. These people will literally nominate and support someone who, quote unquote, is in the Epstein files or is charged with a sexual assault.
Right.
That's absolutely diabolical.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way back to Roy Moore in Alabama in 2017. The guy groomed and raped children and still got 47% of the vote.
Yeah.
That's insane.
But again, we'll take this back further than Roy Moore and talk about Bill Clinton, who got a beej in the Oval Office. And
he probably shouldn't have done.
He should not have done. And yet, we still get TV shows about that.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Right, but it's like, sorry, it shouldn't have happened. I do feel for Monica Lewinsky.
I do too.
30 years ago.
Right.
Move on. But like beyond that, if a Democrat does it, it is the end of the world. If a Republican does it,
Bill Clinton's legacy will be that he got a blowjob in the Oval Office, even though his legacy is so much more impactful. And that's the thing that drives me insane about all this. And I think that's why men sometimes get upset. He has an affair, which I'm sure Hillary Clinton knew about. I'm going to be honest.
I have my thoughts on that too.
But he has an affair. He shouldn't have done it. It's wrong. They're consenting adults.
It's embarrassing.
It's
distracting. It doesn't look good. It doesn't reflect well on the party or on the administration.
We don't like that.
Yeah.
But that's all that he's remembered of. Anytime you say that, in my college classroom, right? I was there, and in my classroom, I play political speeches because it's a speech class, not like I'm not indoctrinating.
I'm sorry, you as a teacher?
Me as a teacher.
So you're talking to people who were not even alive when this happened, and they all have strong opinions about it.
Correct. So I played a speech about by Bill Clinton talking about the budget deficit, and it's him triangulating. He's using a Republican, and they raised their hands, and they're like, isn't this the guy who got a blowjob in the Oval Office? And I'm like, yes, but that's not what this is about. And then they were like all giggling about. They all knew about it.
So that's
all they knew about him.
There's something fundamentally broken.
Yeah, but like, and then I asked.
These are people who were born in like 2005.
Right, and
this
then
is like.
Well, I'm not trashing them. I have to be clear.
That's
all they know.
I don't think you're trashing them. I am a little bit.
But then I played them a video of George W. Bush, and they were like, "Oh, he's the funny guy." And I'm like, no. He invaded 2 countries and put it on a credit card and made a massive tax cut that added trillions to the debt. That's who he is. I didn't say that, of course. But they're like, oh, he's the funny guy with like, he can't speak.
The golf swing.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so he's the blowjob guy. Barack Obama's the cool guy. And George Bush is the mannerism guy.
Well, I saw an article yesterday asking, it's from Politico again, who is not our friend, the publication, but it was like, where's Obama? And it's quite where is he? Why hasn't he spoken out? Where's Harris? I don't see one damn publication asking where George W. Bush is.
Obama. Here's the thing about Obama is Obama was not interested in making the party better. He did his 2 terms and he peaced out, and now he's a billionaire. That's what he wanted. I'm sorry. I'm not his. The more he talks, the less I care about what he says. He's a good president. I like him. He's fine. It's all about his legacy. It's all about him. I don't care. I don't care about him going to the basketball game with Stephen Curry and sitting on the sideline in a cool outfit. I don't care about his $1 million yacht he just bought. He got what he wanted, and good for him. He's not the party leader.
He's not the party leader.
And we need to continue to move. You know who's a loyal dog to the Democratic Party after everyone he knows probably abandoned it? Bill Clinton. We were there. We met him. Guess where he was? A tiny little Italian restaurant
in
Erie, Pennsylvania, talking to everyone about why this black woman from California is going to be a great president.
Yeah.
And we shun him because he got a blowjob. And then we elevate Barack Obama, who lost 60 House seats and 15 Senate seats.
I'm not gonna shit on Obama, but
I'm not crapping on him. He's just.
My purpose in bringing that up is again, it's like, where's Obama? Why isn't he doing the work? Where's George W. Bush?
Where's everybody?
Where are all the good where are the good Republicans? Why are we focusing our fire on Democrats when a vote barely passes the House and who Republicans have the majority in, and Democrats, 1 or 2 Democrats are missing, or 3 Democrats have died.
They're literally dead.
It's not because of we're focusing on the wrong people.
We are the minority party. They have the votes to pass whatever they want to pass.
And that's where I want to end this.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk
guys.
to you next week.
Thanks.